Welcome back to Part 2 Garden. First plant we're going to look at today is this Lilium Black Beauty. This is one of my favorite lilies in the garden. I am a huge fan of the lilies that kind of hang pendulous, droop over. This lily gets to about 6 feet tall, I would say. I do have to stake it because once the flowers start to form on the ends of the stems, it gets kind of heavy. If we get some good rain, it kind of just flops over. But worth staking. Now right over top of the lily here, we have this really cool tree, which is pretty rare to find. It's pretty much only in arboreta and botanical gardens. This is Polyothersis sinensis. The flower buds are just starting to open, more so at the top of the tree right now. There's some bees up there starting to buzz for the early morning. So I would think by this afternoon this tree's going to have a lot of flowers open up there, and you're going to have a lot of activity. But yeah, really cool tree to find. Common name is called Chinese pearl bloom. The Cephalaria radiata. It's looking good. The Lobelia cardinalis is starting to poke through the pycnanthemum here. This is a Salvia uliginosa. It's more of like a wetland salvia. Definitely likes a little bit of moisture in the soil. Can take some drought once established, but it wants definitely a heavier soil. Nice little blue flower. And then behind it, I have the Physostegia corellii. This is a native Physostegia to the southern portion of the United States. Like most Physostegias, want a little bit of a wetter soil. And then over top of these two, we have the Coreopsis tripteris, and this is Gold Standard. So Gold Standard was a cultivar that was selected out of Mount Cuba Center in Delaware. It's more, I would say, upright, very sturdy. Tends not to flop as bad as the straight species. Doesn't get as tall, which makes it a little nicer. Has a really nice airy effect to it. My only complaint with this is it does run a little bit, so I have to constantly dig up pieces of it. But overall, it's a really nice plant. I have this cool Eryngium here. This is Eryngium aquaticum. So as you would think from the name, it likes wet, and that you are correct. And what's funny is most Eryngiums want to be pretty much on the dry side, good draining soil, but not this one. So I kind of let this seed around the front garden here. It's biennial, so I have to kind of let it maneuver itself around the garden. I'm not going to talk too much about up front here right now. This is getting to be a little messy. We had a little bit of rain, so things are starting to flop over everywhere. Got to do some cleanup. The Phlox paniculata David. Still looking white, hasn't browned out yet on me. Here's some more of the Eryngium. We have this phlox down here. So this is one of those phlox that has a trademark name, and the trademark name is Coral Flame. It's always been a really nice plant here. It's, you know, maybe only 18 inches tall, and it always flowers, and it repeats flowers as well. So, you know, I will deadhead this, and I will get another bloom set, usually in like early fall, September-ish. All right, so as I mentioned in some of the older videos, that I have an extensive collection of hydrangeas, and more so some of the more oddball species hydrangeas, and in particular the asperas. So this first one here that's flowering, finally is flowering. This is the Hydrangea Aspera Red Velvet. This is a selection made by Ed Bowen and Taylor up at Isima in Rhode Island. There's a nice venation pattern on the bottom of the leaf. I don't know if I've mentioned it in one of my previous videos or not, but this plant is a little stressed this year. Leaves are definitely a little smaller. They're more green than normal for this time of year, and the flower heads are a little smaller. You know, my neighbor lost a tree here in her yard that now lets this area get a lot more hot sun during the day, which it wasn't used to before, so everything's a little stressed. It's kind of funky, but it's doing okay. It's not dead, so we'll see what happens as a couple more years progress. And got this maple here that's going to help take over and shade out that area. But looking back here, you can kind of see the tops of the Polyothersis there. And look at those flowers with the sunlight hitting them. Just kind of glow right now. It's really cool. Alright, so this plant down here is a hydrangea family. This is Cardiandra. And this cultivar here is Stardust. It's got little tiny flowers in there. See if I can get a focus on it. There we go. So yeah, like the most hydrangeas, those little outer petals are just infertile, sterile bracts, basically. And the little white flowers in the middle are what the pollinators will go after. This is an underused, underfound plant genus. So if you can get your hands on some, I would say go ahead and do that. Good for shade, wants a little bit of a, not a wet soil, but doesn't want to be on the dry side. Here we have the cardoon flowering. I've had this plant in this spot now for probably 5 years, and it continues to flower. Even though they're kind of like biennial, short-lived perennial, I just keep deadheading it, and don't let it go to seed. So like this flower head up here that is starting to go to seed, I will go ahead and snip that off probably today or tomorrow, and keep the energy down into the root zone of the plant and hopefully keep it alive for another year. So another Hydrangea Aspera that's starting to open, which resides over the pond here. This is Red Fred. Red Fred was purchased from Dancing Oaks Nursery. I'm not sure if it's their cultivar selection or not. I think it might be, because I think they're the only place I've ever seen it for sale. But yeah, the Asperas are definitely pollinator friendly. The lace cap form, easily accessible flowers for the bees. And you know, sometimes I see some flies popping on here, but mostly a bee pollinated. But definitely looks good this year. You know, it gets the name Red Fred from the red leaves when it emerges in spring. They kind of fade to this olive green color for summer. And on the other side of the pond, this is another Isima selection, and this is Royal Flush. You know, it's called Royal Flush because of the leaf color in the spring is nice and red, nice royal red, but the flowers have this really nice pink hue to them. This is just starting to open. I would think next couple days this will really be popping in the garden. But overall, really nice plant. This sits now about let's say close to 7 feet tall. So it's only going to keep getting bigger, which was the goal. All right, so I have a clematis that I want to talk about next. Now, it's funny because I had purchased this clematis thinking it was going to be Clematis pitcheri. And I noticed a couple years ago, I was getting these brown leaf flower buds on it and was kind of confused. And then I did some research, and it seems like Clematis fusca generally has like brown flowers, like this one. So either it's just a straight fusca or it's a hybrid of pitcheri, but either way, pretty interesting. And the flowers are kind of fuzzy too, which is kind of neat. So yeah, instead of ripping it out, I left it to kind of do some research and kind of found out that it's something different. Now I have this ground cover perennial here, which is definitely not going to be found out in the trade too often. This is Heliotropium, and it is a species name of Amplexicale. So that's about as tall as you're going to get it. It's only about, I would say, 6 to 7 inches in height, and it just creates a carpet through the garden. I constantly actually cut it back around some of my other plants so it doesn't like shade them out and cause any like rot issues. But it will seed around a little bit. I do find seedlings throughout the garden. I just pull them up, but it's a really, really nice plant. I mean, that flowers from now, you know, it probably started about 2-3 weeks ago, and it will continue to go all the way through until the late fall. Got the Hemerocallis here. This is Webster's Pink Wonder. It's a little smaller this year. I did move it to this location late last fall, so I think it's still trying to gain some energy in the roots. So the flowers are about, I would say, 3/4 of the size of normal. Phlox paniculata Jana. Oh, and of course, just in time, we had a visitor. Definitely the best phlox for all, I would think, pollinators, especially the butterflies. The small tubular flowers on this, and I guess the amount, are very accessible for the butterflies. So this is like a butterfly magnet. If you're having a pollinator friendly garden, or you just want to have pollinators in general, definitely pick this up for your sun garden. By far the best Phlox paniculata. And I believe it was the perennial plant of the year through the Perennial Plant Association maybe a year or two ago. One of my Eucomis. This is Sparkling Burgundy. Just starting to open. This is a Zone 7 hardy perennial. It definitely needs winter drainage. It's a big bulb, essentially. So if you have wet soil during the winter, this will just rot out and you'll lose it, almost definitely. So definitely try this plant for a sun spot with good drainage. It looks really good actually up against that little dwarf, which actually it's a dwarf. What is it? Primo is the cultivar, so it's a dwarf arborvitae. I don't remember the species on it, but I know Primo is the trademark, and it's just a really cool plant. One of the first ones I actually put in here when we started adding some dwarf conifers to the back garden here. We have this really nice Vernonia here, the ironweed. This is Mammoth. Right now it stands at about, I would say about 7 feet tall. It's very sturdy. I never have to stake it. Always stays upright. It flowers for a long period of time. Now Vernonia, for a lot of people, can kind of be kind of a weedy mess. They will seed around. But I really stay on top of my plants here, and I deadhead almost everything that I don't want to seed. And also it's good for your plants too if you're not trying to get them to seed, because you're conserving energy from going into seed production and putting it more back into the roots and leaf production. Another Vernonia here on the side. This is the white lightning. And you can still see the Stipa gigantea flowers still looking good. And there's an Artemisia back there. And I think we will finish up with one of my favorite Hydrangea asperas in the garden, and maybe out of all of them I've ever seen. So it's another selection from Ed Bowen and Taylor Johnson up at Isima. So this one is called Royal Lace. So really, really big flowers, really, really big leaves. Got nice fuzzy texture to it. The stems have the nice hairy aspect to them. And so that means this was definitely a cross with Hydrangea aspera sargentiana. And yeah, I think it's just a showstopper of a plant. I couldn't be more happier than this with an aspera. This is exactly what you want out of one of them. So yeah, I think that's going to be today's video. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. And we'll see how things progress through the next couple of days. And we got another video out there.